Thank you guys so much for coming. My name is Gary Schneidkraut. I'm the founder and principal advisor for Beverage Alcohol Consultants, BAC. How's everyone doing today? Good? I want to thank MHW for inviting me to speak here today. This is a very interesting time, would be the understatement of the century when discussing the alcohol industry right now. And today we're going to talk about some of the trends in wine and spirits. The idea is giving a direction forward. How do we pivot? How are we agile so that we all come out on top? The market is evolving faster than ever. Alcohol, we had prohibition, the repeal of prohibition, and then about 90 years of silence until the pandemic. We're in a time right now that I'm calling modern alcohol. Consumer behavior, socialization, and consumption used to go hand in hand. You meet up with people for a drink. You get together, you have a cocktail or some beers. The reality of socialization has changed. Shifting preferences, so premiumization, health consciousness. Are we going through a time like tobacco did at one point? And on-premise versus off-premise. The pandemic, we entertained. You learned I can drink at home. We can make cocktails. And also, economic pressures. Do you really want to pay $21 for a cocktail, $18 for a glass of wine? So we're going to explore what today's consumers are actually buying and why, and suppliers, distributors, retailers, how to adapt, stay relevant and competitive. Here's one thing I want to say to any leader of a brand or supplier: know what you don't know and surround yourself with the people who do. The alcohol industry is huge, but it's a very small world, and a rising tide raises all ships. So there have been a ton of brands that have entered the market from founders that don't have previous experience in CPG, beverage, alcohol specifically. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but to sort of hang your ego at the door and be open and receptive to other perspectives. I've been in the alcohol industry for going on 20 years now. I know I don't look it. I spent the better part of a decade with Empire Merchants in Metro New York. It was in the one division that sold, at the time it was an entire 190-page catalog. Liqueur, spirits, wine, sake, champagne. Got a couple WSET certifications. Absolutely fell in love with the alcohol industry. And then when looking to make a move to a supplier, an executive search firm specialized in consumer goods said, screw it, why don't you come work for us? And I spent about 10 years working with suppliers and brands that ranged from pre-launch, emerging, mid-size, enterprise, beer, wine, spirits, RTD, no and low, little cannabis, functional. I'm a devil's advocate. As I am a strategic advisor to brands, I am going to challenge you not to be contrarian or combative, but if we can poke holes in the strategy, in the branding, let's get ahead of it and call it out before the general public does. So modernizing outdated playbooks. Right here, the forces reshaping the US market that we're going to go through: premiumization, generational shifts, regulatory shifts, THC and the accessibility of alternative beverage, health and GLP-1s, and economic pressure. Again, if anyone has a question, comment, raise your hand, throw it up. I want it to be a dialogue as opposed to a lecture. Everybody awake? Good? Thumbs up? Fantastic. So premiumization right now, and please forgive any of the formatting errors. Apple doesn't love Microsoft. They broke up with Google. They don't talk anymore. It's difficult. But consumers are drinking less with the understanding that alcohol is not good for you. But when they are drinking, they're drinking better. And there are a lot of definitions of better, but volume declined 2% for total global volume in 2025. Premium and above, which it says in the top right, as consumers traded up, volume increased back in 2024. The 375 milliliter formats have become increasingly popular because people can try new products They're buying a bottle without the pressure. So fewer ounces, more premium ounces, and premium beyond price. So a lot of you might think the more expensive a product, the better it is. No. As we've seen, authenticity, transparency, story, origin, additive free, if we're going to go the tequila route, being a clean product. Clean, I know there's a lot of legality about what you can say about alcohol. Pressures that are forcing brands and consumers to be more selective. The volume brands that are very low price, that people used to buy several bottles of, not necessarily doing great right now. So having a story, having a differentiator as a brand, but being transparent, knowing who your consumer is, I think it's wildly important to know who's consuming your product, especially when you're picking what market to go into and to sell. A lot of folks say, well, I want to be sold in the US. Why? Well, that's where the consumers are. It's a big economy for it. But does your product fit? If you are a skinny margarita, are you going to go first to the East Coast, Miami, New York, West Coast, LA, etc., or are you going to go to Middle America? Which demographic is more focused on the benefits of your product? Here's where I've got a lot of beef. You guys remember happy hour, right? You graduated college, you're the 22-year-old kid, you order a cheap beer, and Helen from accounting lets you try her Negroni. And you think, oh my God, I might be a gin guy. And Helen's cool. Happy hour, because of the pandemic and remote work, it doesn't happen. So that sacred ritual of spending time with your colleagues outside of the office, of connecting on a human level, being exposed to different categories, products, etc., that's not happening. Introduction to alcohol, obviously not legal, but hypothetically, if you had prom night, you fill a Poland spring water bottle with a cheap vodka, hypothetically. A lot of people missed out on prom, school dances, homecoming, frat parties. I wasn't a frat boy, but so a lot of those sort of milestones or events in life, even weddings, bar mitzvahs, they went remote, so people couldn't quite consume. Speaking of remote, kids can socialize these days without physically being together. I knocked on my nephew's door one day. I heard him talking to a friend. No, he had a headset on with a microphone. He was playing video games. You're able to talk to your friends while playing video games. My niece is FaceTiming her friends. And social media, this is a really interesting sort of viewpoint. I spoke to a founder of a sessionable RTD. There was about 2.5% ABV, and I said, what is it with your generation and sessionable, low alc? And he said, social media. I asked him, I said, is it the pressure from social media that you need to have a six-pack and beer's not going to help with that? People filter their pictures. He said, no, everything we do these days is recorded. So if you get a little loose and you make a mistake on something you say, something you do, someone can edit it, put it up there. You're not going to college. You're not getting that job, which I think is quite wild. My parents didn't know where I was like 80% of the time. I'm the third child of three. I was raised by a VCR. So again, occasion is super important. Happy hour used to be a built-in occasion. Football Sunday used to be a built-in occasion. You're going to have some beers with your friends. But socialization is happening now in different venues, contexts, oftentimes with no alcohol. 50% of adults under 30 reported drinking, which is down from 2023 when it was 59%. This, in my opinion, is probably one of the biggest kicks to the gut for the alcohol industry, because for the first time ever, you had respected resources or sources such as the Surgeon General in January 2025 calling for updated cancer warnings. So treating alcohol similar to cigarettes, let's say, and cited alcohol as the third leading preventable cause of cancer in the US. For the Surgeon General to explicitly say something like that, whether science backs it, it's true, untrue, we're in cancel culture. Something is said, it's out there, it's up for interpretation. The World Health Organization explicitly said there is no safe level of alcohol consumption. Guidelines went from 2 drinks a day for a man, 1 for a woman, to borderline neo-prohibitionism and this attitude saying 0 alcohol ever. It's nerve-wracking to be out there. Obviously, the U.S. did not adopt those dietary guidelines. Conflicting scientific evidence, lobbying, the impact that our industry has on the economy of the U.S., the world. So they simply say, just don't drink with your breakfast. Just be responsible. And also, alcohol has never stood in front of Congress and said, we're like salad. We've never said that. That's why everything we sell says enjoy responsibly, drink responsibly. We are meant to enrich the experiences of our consumers. When I worked for a distributor in Metro New York, I remember my boss said to me, what we're doing here is not brain surgery. And I was insulted because I interpreted that to mean anyone can do what we do. And he clarified and he said, look, if a bottle of Kettle breaks in transit on a Friday shipment, nobody dies. No one's life is on the line here. Guess what? They'll pour Stoli or Grey Goose or Belvedere. Our industry is meant to enrich the experiences of our consumers. So the cultural impact, I am loving this formatting. 53% of Americans believe that even moderate drinking is bad for your health. And currently, drinking rates have hit a 90-year low at 54% of adults drinking alcohol. What it means for your brand, frankly, I think it's opportunity. Being an industry that hasn't embraced change historically, lower ABV options, being transparent. I mean, how much weight it carries to be single estate or additive free or having electrolyte. I mean, you're allowed to cite the feature of your product, not necessarily the benefit, but electrolytes, drinks being based with coconut water, things that are more sessionable, but responsible messaging are now competitive advantages. And brands that ignore this, look, the wine industry, you've made yourselves unapproachable. You loosen up, have some fun. As I said, we're here to make the experiences of our consumers enjoyable. It's okay to shift. I think that the alcohol industry is doing a great job right now of not just telling consumers what they should be drinking, but listening to the feedback and adapting and providing options for that. THC, functional, and alt bev. That handsome lad over on the right is me. Just at the end of February, spoke at Alt Bev Expo. We had THC beverages, CBD, lion's mane and reishi, mushroom, adaptogens, nootropics. THC-infused drinks are the fastest growing alternative, and the regulatory landscape is changing very, very quickly. First off the market, THC beverage sales in 2024 surpassed $1 billion. That's with a B, $1 billion. 28 states, THC beverages are legal. Different sort of terms, but I'm going to get to that a little bit more. You might be thinking, I thought when the government reopened in November, they said you've got a 1-year countdown until hemp is banned. Frankly, I don't think that's going to happen. October, I was at the National Beer Wholesaler event. 2 months ago at the WSWA, Wine and Spirits Wholesalers. Both organizations said, we welcome non-alcoholic intoxicating adult beverages with open arms, meaning functional, THC. They've wanted to be treated like alcohol for years, going through the 3-tier systems, and we want to be regulated like alcohol. We want it to be distributed like alcohol, and it's been fought. But there's a bipartisan Senate bill right now, the Hemp Safety Enforcement Act, that would let states opt out or participate. And the 3-tier system, this has actually been a lot of the work I'm doing for BAC, is I think we're at approximately almost 20 states that are routing THC beverages through the existing three-tier alcohol system. That BevAlc distributors can sell these non-alc intoxicating beverages. So your distributor relationships may be an entry point if you're looking to diversify your portfolio or to understand even just deeper the market and consumer behavior. GLP-1 meds, this is huge. So we've got millions of Americans taking GLP-1s like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro. And then the purpose typically is to decrease your appetite, to lose a little bit of weight. An unintended side effect that has now become somewhat of a selling point for these drugs is a decreased appetite for alcohol. So approximately 12% of Americans have taken a GLP-1 at some point. In a recent study, 30% reduction in alcohol consumption per drinking day for Ozempic users versus 2% who are on a placebo. So again, people who are looking to lose a little weight, be healthier, look good for the summer, their kid's wedding, whatever it may be, an unintended sort of side effect is that they're drinking less. And GLP-1s influence alcohol sales because as use rises, the appetite for alcohol decreases and your velocity, your volume, that's what it is. Getting on a shelf, that's great. But if your bottles aren't selling and the store's not reordering, and then they're not reordering from the distributor's not ordering from the supplier, you're done. So low and no alc, I'll throw into alt bev. It's no longer a niche, it's strategy. 21.4 billion is the global low alc market right now. 2.25 trillion is what they're anticipating its total bev alc is going to be by 2031, and 28.6 billion is, I believe, what they're projecting the low alc alternatives to be worth in 2030. Zebra striping is when you switch between alcoholic and alcohol-free alternatives at the same occasion. It's a way of moderating alcohol, and I will tell you right now, I do it as well. As far as beers on a football Sunday, I alternate between a regular beer that's delicious and a Michelob Ultra Zero that's got 29 calories, no alcohol. It's a long day of football. It is 7 hours. We sit and drink beer and watch football. So by the end of the day, I haven't had 8 beers and I'm not slurring and falling all over myself. It was 4 beers, but still, you were social. You're having beers with the friends. On the right side of the screen, I actually took that picture because I found it in a friend's fridge. You got Lagunitas. They're little something, I think is nearly 8% ABV. Then on the left is the Michelob Ultra Zero that I'll drink, sometimes 29 calories. And in the middle, which I thought was really interesting, Miller Extra Light, which I believe is like 2.7% alcohol. This is a mix and match type thing, people trying to make better decisions. Trend number 6, economic pressures. 31% of US drinkers cite cost as the number one reason for drinking less. As I said earlier, on premise, look, the margins are not necessarily going to be what they once were. Make more approachable prices. Gen Z is experiencing the lowest wage growth in 15 years, and in 2024, nearly 33% of adults 18 to 34 lived at home with their parents, which was up from 31.8 in 2023. They don't have a lot of money to spend, and frankly, we also have to be sensitive to that. Strategic takeaways, this is really what I want you guys to walk away with. My job is to help my clients make better decisions. I've been fortunate to have a front row seat selling a 190-page catalog of products, feet on the street, being kicked out of bars in Queens, New York, and also spending 10 years providing strategy to those suppliers that are in every category and size. I've had a front row seat to see what works, what doesn't work, and how we can adapt something based on your budget, your needs, your market. Diversify your portfolio. Putting all your eggs in one basket is not the move. Something for everyone. Look, Gallo used to be wine, remember? And then they grew High Noon, They bought Fisher Island Lemonade. They went on an acquisition spree. Spirits, Montucky Cold Snacks, beer. They're doing malt. They're doing RTDs. Molson Coors. Something I want to point out. The name of the company is Molson Coors Beverage Company. It doesn't say brewing or beer anywhere in the name. They actually just acquired they acquired Atomic Brands, which owns Monaco, one of the OG RTDs. I personally know the head of non-alc at Molson Coors. When he took the job, I said, de-alcoholized spirits, non-alc beer. He said, no, man, energy. They own a majority of ZOA, the energy drink associate with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. Last year, they famously bought 8.5% of Fever Tree, the most recognizable upscale mixer, so alcohol adjacent. And you're not compromising your passion. So I'm looking at you guys, wine. I understand it's an art form, but you need to also make a product that people are going to buy, that appeals to their needs, the occasion, and what society's dictating now. Price with intention, not aspiration. Again, making things a little bit more approachable. I declined working with a company because he doubled his price per bottle. And I said, well, what was the math behind that? He said, well, I can. I said, what do you mean? And he has a cocktail strategy. And I said, who the hell is going to pour a plus $100 bottle of into a cocktail? And he said, well, if you do a $36 cocktail, it all works out. I said, again, who the hell is buying a $36 cocktail? He said, well, down in Miami, people go out. I said, okay, who the hell is buying more than one $36 cocktail in a night? Factor in your COGS, your margins, your expenses. Take all of that into account, especially if you're new to the US, because the 3-tier system, everybody gets a piece, and you want to make sure that at the end of the day, you've still got some profit there so that you can reinvest in your company and grow your brand. Every founder believes that their product is priceless. Consumers don't agree. Look, every parent thinks their baby is the most beautiful, and I'm sure your baby's so beautiful, but everyone's got sort of a different viewpoint on what's worth it. Make health a part of your brand. Low and no sessionability. Again, sessionability is not a bad thing. That's volume. So instead of doing a 12% RTD and someone drinking 2 and being done, think about 6%. Someone can drink 4. That's more revenue for you, for the distributor, for the account. If it's at a bar and they're doing buckets, keeps the consumer there longer. They're ordering appetizers. They're calling their friends. John, come meet us at the bar. We're having some drinks. Ingredient transparency and fit the occasion, and rethink how you reach Gen Z. Lifestyle fit is key, and lower the barrier to entry for new consumers. Also, the 6% number I use because you can then be sold in grocery in most states. If you're over 6% ABV, you legally can't be sold in grocery. You need to take those regulations into account. If you leave here with one thing, go an inch wide and a mile deep. For the love of God, suppliers, stop saying I got to be in 46 states. When you're launching, when you're scaling, you need to own your backyard or one market, maybe 3 markets. You spread yourself too thin, you wind up doing a lot, but not doing it quite well. Focus on a particular market, not even a full state even. If you're going to launch in Florida, focus on South Florida. Okay, we'll do Palm Beach down to the Keys, let's say. It's an opportunity for you to learn what works, what doesn't work, some unintended consequences. A client of mine was supposed to be a huge hit at sports venues. Turns out off-premise liquor stores, they have been 90% of the volume that they've sold. So to learn that on a smaller scale, you want to build a repeatable model for scaling, service each market properly. So when you say, oh, we want to be in New York, we want to be in California, we want to be Texas, why? And also, how big is your team? Are you a husband-wife duo who launched a brand? Are you guys going to be going from New York to Texas to California, presenting at every GSM? No. So you have to be realistic. Also, the nuances and legalities of each market. Do you know which grocery stores are the big players in each of those markets? and proof of concept. So it makes you attractive to distributors. Learn first, please take the opportunity to learn and build that proof of concept so you can copy and paste in other markets. Distributors want to know that what they're bringing on has been done before. Distributor advocacy, yeah, I'm biased because I was the feet on the street for many years in Metro New York. Distribution is great. It's not the finish line. It's permission to stand at the starting line of the marathon. That's when the real work starts, when you get distribution. You got to earn your wholesalers' attention. I'm not going to argue. Yeah, they're not building brands like they once were. So you need to show them why having you in their portfolio is going to make them money. Once in my 7 years at the distributor, I got a call from a supplier who said, Gary, I just met with Tommy at this account. He wants 5 cases of Sauv Blanc. Throw that onto his order. I said, did you just make me money? She said, yes. I immediately said, can we meet for lunch? I gave her 17 more accounts that could be a fit for her product. I told her, you want to look for Bridget. Bridget is in at 6 o'clock. She's a Yankee fan, hates the Red Sox, if you want to bring that up there. But that information for them to help with sales, you're a brand, you've got to sell. So your wholesaler will pay attention to that inventory that's leaving their warehouse. You're making yourself money, you're making the rep money, you're making the distributor money, and provide them with the insights. Nobody knows a brand's consumer better than the brand. You put in all that time and research, and it's great that you're going to the bars and you say, oh, the ladies really love it. Help the distributor, give them some direction. What ponds should we be fishing in? And also invest in education. Equip every stakeholder, your distributor, the retailers, the restaurants, the bars, the consumers. You want them all to be educated. Remove as much friction as you can from someone placing the order with your brand. Perspective matters because this isn't just theory. This isn't me reading the different publications and regurgitating what I've read. I've spent nearly 20 years in the 3-tier system. I got to go to Napa from Gallo. Thank you. Brown-Forman took our team to Versailles, Kentucky. That's me and a Jack Daniel's statue. Next to it is, you come out of an account and your car's been T-boned. So you got to go to a mechanic. You set up your work in a mechanic's office. And the guy all the way to the right, Tommy, RIP, was my 9 a.m. appointment every other Thursday out in Long Island. Never have I been more afraid of a man in my life. He became my number one client. And finally, I know I'm over time. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it.